This will be conducted by Mr. Deepak DC, Head of Security Partnership, Tesco. Let's give it up for Mr. Deepak DC.
Morning, afternoon, this is Deepak. I'm here to introduce you to a topic which is not really technical, as it was explained. It's going to be semi-technical. So firstly, welcome you all to BSides Bangalore. I hope you're all having a right sessions. So quickly about myself, I've been in the industry for 22 years roughly. I had been in a few domains like retail I'm currently part of. I'm a head of security partnerships in Tesco technology. And prior to that, I've been experienced with industries like home automation, consulting, and so on. I've been a passionate designer, coder myself. And so with that, here we are going to talk about this subject, what is security partnerships and how does security partnerships help in fostering a secure culture. Now, truly what that means in practice is how we could use our influence on doing good security practices to ensure that we work with the teams who are ensuring that whatever they develop with the mindset that everything what we develop for the customers, the community and the planet is all secure and safeguarded, right? That's all about security, right? Security always is about empowering people, and that's what I'm going to talk. Before I begin, who we are as a Tesco as an organization. So we are an organization based in UK, a retailer, nearly about 350,000 colleagues worldwide, roughly about 4,300 stores, 3,700 alone in UK itself, and 5 countries we operate, a joint venture which is 𝗙𝗵𝗿𝗀 in India, and roughly 300,000 colleagues just in UK alone. That also includes the technology people. And from a capacity point, we do like 60 to 70 million trips, like the Swiggy trips or Zomato trips, 60 to 70 million per week. That's the amount of volume we deal with. So had a quick poll, but looks like I think there's no appetite for this, and time is also short. So I'm going to just jump to what are we talking about and what's the structure of my conversation here. So as with anything else, it starts with the why, then the how, and the what, okay? Anything else you do, really, you need to understand the why part. The why part is so important to know that, what are we doing and how are we doing? So why are we doing this in my organization? So this is an experience doing security engineering, security partnerships in the last 4 years. And what happened in the last 4 years? That's the why I'm talking about. So look at it like an organization problem in the organization pyramid, right? There is, at the grassroots level, typically engineering is struggling with cybersecurity problems. I'm talking about software developers who write code. The middle management, they always have something competing against it. At the top management, they always struggle to ensure that the risks are contained. It's an ever-mounting problem, right? As you heard from my other speakers in the morning, cybersecurity is always a mounting problem, and sometimes you got to catch up. You really have to catch up. Why? So why was our organization particularly facing this issue? We had been operating in a manner that we were retrospectively finding security vulnerabilities. We were transactionally handling teams, and we were not really understanding the context in which the business must be operating, the advices should be working, and we couldn't have time to follow up anything with engineering, so that's another problem. So we were completely outnumbered by the engineering and the security people, right? In big organizations, that, there are thousands or hundreds of thousands of engineers, software engineers, but the security people are just 1/10 or 1/5, right? That was actually the case, we were in. Things we learned in the really hard way. We understood that security needs to understand products much better. How many of you will agree that security team does not understand what the business does in terms of products? How many of you will agree with me? right? It's a thing that, security is not just one size fits all. Security is not really an enforcement. Security is an enforcement in certain industries, but not everywhere, right? Agree? And finally, developers, they are not trained on security. Developers are developers. Developers need to implement features, right? We can't expect developers to be a good security person designing and writing code. So all of this led to a friction, and all of this led to more work, and all of that led to competing priorities at the ground level. So when you're talking about a product scrum team, right? There's always product which takes priority over anything else. Product features, what do you want to deliver for your customers and everything, that always takes precedence. So in 2021, we set apart on a journey. We said that this is definitely not working. This is definitely not the right manner in which we should be looking at how we do security in the organization. And definitely this is something needs to have a cultural fit, okay? Remember the term cultural fit, because I'm going to come back later and explain what that is. So we embarked on this journey, embedding security practices within the teams. And to throw a little more light, so we called it as a security partnerships, okay? Now, different companies would call that as different names, obviously. It's really underpinned by 4 principles, and it was core to our organization. So security principles, what we defined that would work for our organization was that it's really those 4 things, right? Two-way communication is a human thing, right? Two-way communication is so important for doing good things. So two-way communication was broken. We got to ensure that two-way communication is so important when security meets engineering. And trusted relationship is another thing. Doing contextual security is another thing. And finally, we got to behave like enablers, not like blockers or even policing the teams for work. And as you know, right, and most of you, if you spend quite some time in the industry, right, security, there's nothing like 100% security. There is nothing like security can be one size fit all. There is nothing like security will always be an enforcement, and enforcement will enable speed and all that. Sometimes there's always a trade-off. So we went behind these principles, and with these principles, we started off our journey in 2021. But I got to say that starting small is always important, right? With anything else. So you start small, you learn, you fast, sometimes you fall, you learn it, you adapt it, right? So we started off in that journey. We called that as 5 different. Sorry, the animation went. Yeah. So we called it like 5-stage engagements, starting with orientation, partnerships, contextual awareness, initiatives, and reporting. So I have a slide which talks a little more on that. Now there were some quick wins. Okay, when we looked at working with a few teams, and when we started these initiatives, there were some quick wins, which is example like we started knowing each other. We started working with products started knowing each other, our solutions, and solutions started knowing each other, what security is. There's two-way communication, I said. We saw that quickly adapting. It was a structural communication. The structural communication means that we know that when security will be embedded, like how frequently the Scrum teams will be engaged, how frequently the managers and the products and everybody will be engaged. It was so structured, which we never had in pre-2021. And finally, it's all about building trust, right? And then you build on top of what success you already saw. Just to throw a little light on what these stages are. So these stages are not like maturity stages. These are how we progress with engineering. Okay? How partnership progresses with engineering. It's nothing to say that it's in level 1 or level 5. That's the key aspect. So it starts with orientation. Orientation is discovery, understanding stakeholders, understanding roadmap and stuff like that. Then it moves to partnerships. Partnerships, here in this stage, I'm saying, understanding the business context a bit, understanding what the software development lifecycle for that team looks like. Because every team sometimes are given freedom to tweak their SDLC process. Right? Every team will have different means by which they would deliver software. Frequency would change. There can be teams who are delivering as every day. There can be teams who are delivering as every 6 months. Right? All of this is reality of today. Correct? So we also saw that security posture of the businesses can vary. When I mean business, it's not business at an organization level. It's like each vertical or the line of business within your organization. That's what I mean. Okay, and there is always technical depth. And when we go to the next stage in contextual data, right, we understand like what's your code like, what language do you use, who are your influencers, regulators are your influencers, third parties are your influencers, or have you given the development to a third party? All of that, right? What influences security we understand. And we go into this initiative stage. Initiative stage is, that's where we actually begin hitting the ground with small tasks which teams can finish. Okay? It can be fixing a vulnerability or adapting a practice or adapting a tool. Remember that, security best practices, we always talk about 3 things, right? People, practices, and tools, right? It can be anything. The idea is that whatever is the team, whatever is the smallest thing you can start off with, that's where we start with initiatives. We started with initiatives. And slowly you build on the success of, completing those small initiatives on a weekly basis, on a quarterly basis, and so on, right? Education, some of the speakers in the past said that education is an important thing. We also educate people the why. Okay, education is the most important thing when it comes to security. And finally, in reporting, we report into the management and then say, are we getting better or are we getting worse? Fast forward 3 years, we had been, remember I said that, all of this was like, pre-2021. So now we have like stages where security partnership has become better and better within our organization. Security partnerships wanted to do more because security itself is evolving. Security itself, the landscape is constantly changing. You agree with that, right? And we always wanted to do more with that. So I'm going to the second half of my talk, which is like, what did we really achieve for the teams? What did we really achieve for the products? Okay, just as a snapshot to say that these are the key things we could see tangibly, we could talk about tangibly, right? So in terms of what we drove for the teams, I should have said the scale at which we operate. So there are like Tesco is like I said 350,000. We have about 5,000 software developers, software engineers, hundreds of teams, thousands of applications. So this is the scale at which we are up against as like a team of few people. So we were trying to weave best practices in the security, in the team's ways of working. We were not forcing anything at all, which was one of the key aspects. We were ensuring that when it came to prioritization, the most important, the top 5, the top 3 things in security we wanted to prioritize. That goes back to the initiatives I said, right? It can be an initiative in tool improvements or process improvements or people improvements, right? And then we were pushing adaption, and we were also ensuring that the adaption was self-sustaining. We were also giving insights for people across the ladder, the management ladder, to ensure that everybody has visibility to everything. And you all know that security sometimes can be regarded as friction and frustration. You agree with that? Some of you? Just 1 or 2 hands. Over a period of time, right, you see that security can be really frustrating for teams, and frustration means that that can lead to other problems, even resignations and whatnot, right? Because teams may think that there's no space for creativity on the floor. So we, as much as possible, we try to reduce friction by saying that when you have a problem, a partner is there to help. And last but not the least, we were about talking progress. We were never talking about targets. We were never talking about setting long-term goals, because sometimes long-term goals are not really realistic. You know that, right? So what we drove for the products, this obviously is a new thing. The left-hand side, what you see, the blue circles. Product security starts with requirements, better design, whatnot, right? Application security. It's really a domain on its own, right? So many facets to it in product security. One call out is that, being security partners in front of the teams, we were also being the conduit between the entire security and the engineering. So what I mean by that is that cyber defense or cyber operations or cyber engineering or risk and compliance or any other teams within security would go through a security partner to embed all these best practices. That's what I mean. So we had always one person, a security partner, channeling all those conversations in the context of the product, in the context of the people, and using the trust and relationship they've already built. On the green boxes, so we were driving some named outcomes. Named outcomes, just to name a few, you will agree that this is not a comprehensive list. Like access is managed, like developer access to your production, third-party access to your production, data is safeguarded, application is developed secure, vulnerabilities are managed, there's a standard policy, blah, blah, blah. So there's so many, every organization would regard a set of things, what are the key security outcomes, and we did that. So what did this really lead us to, right? Security mindset. That's where I started talking about, fostering a better the mindset, a good mindset, and open conversations. Teams would reach out to us anytime, anywhere, and then say, I've got a problem, I've got an exception, I've got this, I've got that. We want to remediate this 3 months down the line, whatever, right? You all probably might be facing that in your day-to-day. And most importantly, as my talk started off, right, knowing the why behind anything engineering does, right? It's sometimes challenging, sometimes delivering the why, but the people who are actually responsible for engineering, like the product and the program, they would know why so much engineering effort is spent on the cybersecurity work. So I got to say one aspect. Most organizations would be doing these activities in one form or shape. Partnership is no one size fit all, right? Partnership needs a collaborative effort from the overall security organization. Partnership is just we call, right? Different companies would call different things. Partnership definitely is benefited from security making a self-service. Partnership actually requires programs like cyber champions. Most of you, do you come with an organization where there are cyber champions or something equivalent? Like programs where it helps imbibe engineers on the floor get better at security, right? And they are the security's conduit. They are the communication lines. We wanted better tools and dashboards. We also wanted to, there's always better, sometimes when you have maturity programs, the maturity programs measure teams how they are improving over time. But partnerships truly do not want to, because we presented ourselves as we are here to help you guys. We are not measuring you against, but there are other departments in security who would measure them and then say, you're here and this is how we compare you and those parameters. So I said about why talking progress is more important than lining a team on a scale of 5 on maturity or a scale of 10, or saying that they have to reduce vulnerabilities by 20%, 50%. The reason is that when you talk progress, right, it's a mindset thing, it's a cultural thing. You appreciate that such a work is going on. When you just say that getting into 0 vulnerabilities is the North Star. Anytime you can get into 0, the very next day something can really happen, right? So that's why talking progress is most important thing. I just wanted to wrap up very quickly saying that there are no two things in your organization which are equal. Teams are different, people are different, the things they build are different. Talk qualitatively than quantitatively, and ensure that you answer the business whether they are getting better or worse. So this comes to the last slide, and I believe I'm right on time. Is like, how would you really kickstart if you were to, adapt something from my talk in your organization? You really have to, obviously, security is outnumbered, right? You really have to start with your crown jewels in the organization. Your crown jewels are core systems. You start with that, which has got higher attack surface, obviously, right? Which, when pulled down, it'll have bad press, right? That's what I'm saying. You also need to start with teams which are interested. What happens if you work with teams who are like very occupied, very busy, or think that they are already doing a better job in security? You're wasting your time, but we can address those teams a little later. That's the point. Okay? You got to operate like a squad, like a scrum, if you know Scrum and Agile, how it works. And we got to really recruit the right people in the right mindset. There can be folks coming from different organizations, very technically expert. In order to drive such a program, it needs mindset. It really means working with people. It really means understanding product and then talking about security, not applying security on top of product. So that's where I close. I think I'm good on time. Are there any questions from anyone?
So thanks, Deepak, for the presentation. My name is Yogini, and the question that I have is, you spoke extensively about partnership, right? And you engage across levels, right, from the developer to middle management to senior management. And a consistent message has to be given so that they are on board. I just wanted to know your thoughts and the challenges that you face within your organization or that you would have seen across the industry. Your thoughts on that.
Good, good. I did say that, we don't message out quantitatively. I said qualitatively. I think that's where the question comes from. When we message out the higher management, and this is really what works in our organization, right? Every organization would regard something different. When we message out, they really want to look at quantitatively. But what we say is that look at how the results from the last pen test were and look at the results from this year's pen test, how things have changed. Look at how many assets were not patched last year versus this year. Look at, unfortunately, the management understands numbers, right? But you can do better there, which is like when, large organizations do activities like purple teaming, red teaming, and all that stuff. You could say that these were the findings from last year and now this year, because such activities have huge, what should I say, visibility in the management. Sometimes even the board requires, reports on what happened to your red teaming and so on. Those are really qualitative aspects. You can compare results from the previous last year's, red teaming versus this year's red teaming exercise. Those exactly will nail the point, saying that we are getting better. At the grassroots level and the middle management level, yes, there can be a struggle understanding the why part, right? Unfortunately, it takes time understanding product. Product people are product people, like security people are security people. So that's like understanding that, okay, how can I understand product and how can then product understand us, right? That's just the human thing, right? It's nothing more than a human thing. It's not a technology problem at all. And whatever works, right? In an organization, if the numbers don't work, you're going to really use like how threats are getting reduced, right? And in a quantitative way, as I explained. Hopefully that was cool. Anything anymore? All right, thank you so much, guys. Hope that was insightful, and bye-bye. Have good sessions rest of the day.
Thank you, Deepak. Now I would request Mr. Navi sir to please come on the stage and felicitate Mr. Deepak.